and I'm continuing my Batman in the Media series, where I've been pretty much reviewing just about every Batman movie since The Dark Knight Rises came out, and now I'm going to be moving on to the two films from Batman the Animated Series. The first one is Mask of the Phantasm and its sequel, Subzero. Before I get into reviewing these movies, I just want to say that Batman the Animated Series, which ran from 1992 until I think 1995, this is my favorite interpretation of the Batman characters. And not too long ago, I watched it for the first time in almost a decade, and I really love it more now than I did when I was a kid. I think it has very impressive animation, very good mystery and action-oriented stories, and the reason why I think I love the show was because the characters have very strong developed personalities, and they were not one-dimensional. And many of them, where they were broken characters, or they were flawed, or they had some sort of motive for something that they just could not have. Now, the animation for most of the characters kind of followed the Batman movies of the time. For example, the Penguin, I think, is obviously modeled on Danny DeVito's look from Batman Returns. And it kind of gave, the show gave an opportunity to showcase villains that hadn't been done before, like Poison Ivy or Two-Face. And, of course, it also created some new characters like Harley Quinn, who is the Joker's girlfriend, or gangster's ball, or what have you. And on top of that, they used Robin and Batgirl only when necessary. It wasn't like the old Batman TV show where you saw, Robin every episode, or in the third season you saw Batgirl every episode. They were used selectively. And this show, I think it was a good mix of Burton's dark interpretation without being too bleak, and the lightness from Adam West's show without being too campy or over the top. Unfortunately, in the last season, the studio decided to pair the show up with Superman cartoon show that was going on at the time, and the look of the show changed to make it look like the Superman characters, and there were a few crossover episodes which I really didn't care that much for, and what really made me mad, without giving anything away, was... For the people that haven't seen Batman the Animated Series, they, shall we say, they look like the show is starting to clear away the show in order to make way for Batman Beyond. So it was just clear that the producers were saying, hey, we're ending the show now, and all this stuff was happening to the characters. But overall, if you have not seen Batman the Animated Series, I strongly recommend checking out at least the first 3 volumes. They're pretty good. If you want to check the 4th one out, that's fine. Okay. Now to the first movie, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. Now, this is arguably the best of the animated movies, and I think it's pretty good too. The story is that a bunch of gangsters from an old crime organization are being hit off one by one, and Batman is being set up for it. But actually, it's a new character in town called the Phantasm.
Batman, how'd you get here?
But meanwhile, a councilman is trying to turn the public against Batman, calling him unstable as the villains that he brings in. And an old flame of Bruce Wayne's named Andrea Beaumont returns to Gotham City. But the Joker is also involved in the story. He somehow has a connection to the crime organization, and he wants to find out who has been icing the old gang. Well, Mask of the Phantasm, I think, is a great atmospheric thriller ride that I think will easily entertain kids and teens and adults. And like a lot of the other Batman series, we get to see a flashback to how Bruce Wayne became Batman. And frankly, I'm starting to get a little bit tired of seeing this after watching all these Batman movies back to back. But I think this one has the best interpretation along with Batman Begins, because Bruce Wayne's a very tragic, conflicted figure at times, and we see him try out his first crime-fighting persona, which doesn't go well. But without giving anything away, Batman and the Phantasm's motives for fighting crime are quite different. Batman wants to help the city, while the Phantasm has other reasons for doing that, and Mark Hamill is the Joker in the TV show as well as in the movie, and personally I think he is the best out of all the Jokers. He's my favorite. He brings a great mix of dark and light humor, and you just never know what he will do next. He seems to be a little bit more violent here than he was in the show, because here he's not afraid to hurt or kill anyone, even his closest associates. And honestly, I kind of picked up that he was a little bit more screwed up and scary in this one.
Tell me what's on your so-called mind. It's Batman. He's gone nuts. You know, I've been reading lately how old Guano Man is wound tight enough to snap. Wouldn't it be great if I'd finally driven him off the deep end? This isn't a joke. Batman's knocking us off, and you're the only one who can take
Mask of the Phantasm is an excellent story and character-oriented movie. But for Subzero, the sequel, on the other hand, I think that this one is kind of the exact opposite. This was a direct-to-video movie that came out in the summer of 1998, and the story with Subzero is Mr. Freeze is his wife is cryogenically frozen because she's suffering from a rare illness, and he discovers that Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, has the same rare blood type as her, and so he kidnaps her. And in addition to Batgirl, this also features Robin. Both of the characters got left out of the Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and I saw this movie only one time before I rewatched it for this review, and honestly, I didn't remember this one too much before I popped the DVD in, and I think I know why. I think Subzero just isn't quite as memorable as Phantasm. Mask of the Phantasm, I think, took advantage of expanding the scope of the TV show by making a movie, where you have more complex characters and you have a little bit more violence. But Subzero, it just plays out like an extended episode of the TV show. There's very little to know about most of the characters, and it's mostly made up of chases, and as a result, I think Subzero just got repetitive after a while. Unlike Mask, I do think you have to have seen the Mr. Freeze episodes from the TV show in order to understand his backstory. With Mask of the Phantasm, you could just pop it in if you've never seen the animated series, and you won't get lost. But here, I think if you're popping Subzero and you've never seen the show, I think you might be a little bit confused about Mr. Freeze a little.
15 years today, darling. Did you think I would forget? How could I? The day we met was the happiest day of my life. A gift for you. I found it in the snow. Fragile beauty clinging to life in this frozen wasteland. Like you and
Everybody else. And we do get to see a romance between Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon that I wish got carried over into the show. And it was also very nice to see Barbara Gordon or her Batgirl alter ego fighting on her own without Batman or Robin with her. I think Subzero is entertaining, but to me, it's just not as good as Mask of the Phantasm, but it's okay. Alright, so that's my review of the two Batman animated series movies, Mask of the Phantasm and Subzero. So if you have seen either of these movies, go ahead and post your comments about it. I do read everything you send in, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.